I'm sitting here in Makassar, Indonesia, South Sulawesi. I'm sitting in the initiative that I co-founded some years ago called Rivanua. Rivanua is an initiative based in Makassar. Yeah, it's an initiative to work together. And then it's in a very wide understanding and definition what working together is. So yeah, it's 9 o'clock p.m. now, which is some hours ahead, New York and Los Angeles. And yeah, we're in the future. So I'll tell you more what the future is.
Yes, please.
Yeah, 3 hours to tomorrow, 10, 11, and 12. Yeah, 3 hours to tomorrow. So yeah, we're going to be beyond tomorrow then. So yeah, I was contacted by Mulemo via WhatsApp some months ago about this meeting, and she told me that it's a group of people who's doing artistic research on activism, which I'm consider myself the researcher. I consider myself as a researcher, even though that it's a very flexible definition, or it's a very flexible category when we connect it to art and cultural practices. So as Mauricio mentioned earlier, that in many places or in many institution or in many understanding that researcher is always only based on a very established institutions, university-based researcher or government-based institution, that they are the only people that can be considered as a researcher. But if we understand it that when we work in a cultural sector, or working as a cultural practitioner, then our activities, or it doesn't have to be in cultural sector or in the cultural field, but in anything we do that requires activities, that we try to find something, or we try to find something that we don't really know before, but we want to know it, and then after knowing it, and then we want to do something further. So that's research is. That's what research is. And also I consider myself also a cultural worker. So I'm more convenient with this term cultural worker, instead of like curator or artist, or because I was not trained as an artist in a formal art school. I was not trained as a curator. Uh, like in ruangrupa, none of us were trained as a curator. Some of us went to art school, but none of us were trained in a formal curatorialship education. So that's also why that the way we did Documenta 15, but some people now call it Lumbung 1. So I will stick to Lumbung 1, because I
What
already
it,
mentioned Lumbung 1.
what it, and what is that term?
Lumbung, yeah. Lumbung is actually the concept and the practice that we brought to Documenta 15, where
Aha.
uh,
Okay.
and then I'll tell you later more about it. So yeah, that's what we brought to Lumbung 1. Before people call it Documenta 15, but we now we call it Lumbung 1. So and then to do Lumbung 1 or to do Documenta 15, we didn't apply the classical curatorial approach. So we didn't control, we didn't oversee everything. We even extended invitation to artists we invited. So many definitions or many terms that we applied during Lumbung One were not really known in the artwork before, but we just wanted to do it. So we applied and then it was applied as part of the process for a couple of years, and then also during 100 days of Documenta 15 or Lumbung One. So yeah, and as I mentioned before that I'm sitting here in Riwano, Makassar. So in ruangrupa ruangrupa is based in Jakarta. Riwano is based in Makassar. Ruangrupa is based in Java Island, and then Riwano is based in Sulawesi Island. For your information, that Indonesia is a country with 17,520 something islands. So it's a lot. It's a lot islands. So from Jakarta to Makassar, it takes 2 hours away by plane. It takes 2 hours away by plane, and then I commute between the cities because my family is in Makassar. My spouse and my son are in Makassar, and then in Ruangrupa is in Jakarta, so I commute like once or twice a month by plane. I wish that I can go by boat, which takes 2 nights. I really wish. Maybe before I did, but before I did around 20 years ago, I always took boat from Makassar to Jakarta, which took 2 days. And then, but maybe I will do it again. So yeah. So like in Ruangrupa, it's really interesting among us because anyone can just start something somewhere else, and then we still support each other. We're still supporting each other to any initiative that we take in somewhere else. Like Riwanwa was started actually as an idea. It was started around 2015, but then it was coming into very real work in 2018 when we started our space, and then in 2021 we started to rent a living house in Makassar to be the space where we organize everything. So this is I'll share screen. I'll share screen to show what Riwanwa is, and then later I'll share screen also to show what ruangrupa is. So yeah, this is the. Did you see my screen?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So yeah, this is the posters and flyers of all our activities. Like last in last year we organized a film screening on Tokyo Reels, and yeah, and then what we just organized a workshop on audio making or audio distributing. So this is what Riwano is in English. It's an initiative based in Makassar, conceived by artists, scholars, and art and cultural practitioners. And yeah. Yeah. And then we have some programs. The programs, those are our programs. We have programs on conversation and discussion, production and presentations. Yeah, and then we have a program of research and studies. Yeah. And educations, we have some workshops. We have archiving and documentation program. And we have a residency program. We host residencies for anyone. Can be artist, researcher, academics, or our friends who just want to. We have some rooms we have some rooms that we can host people. Sometimes we also contacted by friends who transit in Makassar, and they say, can I just stay 1 or 2 nights? And then they say you can even stay for a year if you want. So yeah, yeah, and we have a publishing house, but we haven't published anything. But this is the plan that we want to publish. Some plans, some texts that we're interested to publish. We have a library where there are books, both physical and also PDF files in many languages. We have a film and video screening programs. Yeah, and then in terms of the people who are part of us, so here the teamwork. Yeah. So, but also we have fellows. We call them fellows because people who are not really want to be a part of the administrative wise, but then they keep on hanging out with us and then they contribute. So that's what we call them as fellows, or in bahasa Indonesia rekan-rekan. Yeah. So I'll show one of the programs we organize. Uh, so for example, we have this Masuk Sore session. It's a conversation once a week. We are discussing art discourse and practice in three spheres: the South Sulawesi, Indonesia, and the international world. And then this is also how we share our knowledge and experiences on work in the art field. Yeah, I think yeah, and then this is the space. It's actually a living house. It's actually a living house, and then this is very common in Indonesia that if you start an initiative or a project, a project, and then you can rent a living house, and then where you organize everything, like exhibitions or performative programs, workshop and discussions, workshops again, film screening, just uh, hanging out. So yeah, so this is also the library because we have two places, one in Jakarta and then one in Makassar. This one in Jakarta, where there are books. Yeah, uh, and then of course tables. Yeah, and this is when we started it. Riwanwa was actually I had a permission from my mother-in-law to use the house, the some part of the house. It's a wooden house, and then the first floor. She allowed me to use it as a space to hang out, and then to have a meeting, and then to do many things like working. Yeah. So this is the first space we had in Makassar, but now we already moved to a rented living house. This room is in my mother-in-law house. Yeah, she allowed us to use it for. Actually, it was during pandemic. Uh, it was during pandemic after the social distancing was not really tightened. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, that's actually what Riwanwa is, and then I'm going to show what ruangrupa is. Yeah.
And before you go there, what does Riwanua mean? What does the word stand for?
Riwanwa means an autonomous place. An autonomous place in it can be like in
Okay.
one in a country or in a place, but it's very autonomous where you can just self govern. So this is the website of ruangrupa where you can check out later.
And excuse me, what's Lambam mean? You had in the chat.
Oh, Lumbung is actually
Lumbung.
Lumbung is actually the uh, uh, the concept and practice that we brought to Documenta 15. What we brought to Documenta 15, and as a it's not a theme, but it's a concept. This is what it is. This is what I'll send to the chat. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And this is the ruangrupa. Mauricio, I can hear you. You're muted.
Can I read it for the people that are not looking at the chat? Do you mind while you set up the other part, the definition? Is that
Okay.
okay?
It's okay. Please.
It says the Lumbung practice enables an alternative economy of collectivity, shared resource building, and equitable distribution. Lumbung is anchored in the local and based on values such as humor, generosity, independence, transparency, sufficiency, and regeneration.
Yeah.
Great.
So yeah. So ruangrupa itself was started in 2000. So next year we're going to have the 25 years of ruangrupa, and then this is the website. Yeah. It was started by a group of artists, but later many people coming from different backgrounds joined ruangrupa. The people who are later called as researcher, like me. I mean, people who didn't go to the art school, but joined ruangrupa and then engaging in organize many things. We organizing exhibition, festival, art laboratories, workshop, research, and also publishing book, magazine, and online journal. Yeah. So those are the activities in ruangrupa. In the first place, ruangrupa also rented a living house. But then after some times, we managed to move a warehouse for not now. This is not now actually, because we already moved. This warehouse, we rented this warehouse, but now we purchase our own property to organize our own space in outskirts of Jakarta. Not very far away from the center, but yeah, in the southern part of Jakarta. And then those are the people who are part of ruangrupa. Yeah, at least people who are part of the Documenta 15 or Lumbung one. Yeah. So yeah, it's actually 20 minutes, right? The how many minutes do I have?
It's around 20 minutes approximately, but feel free to go a few minutes more. Yeah, it's totally
No,
fine.
I think I'm going to pause here and then let's just converse. Yeah. Based on let's just converse. Yeah.
That's great. I have so many questions.
Yeah, please. I hope I can answer it. If you have many questions, I also have many answers.
I don't know, Mei-Ching, do you have some? Would you like to start? I have a few, but if
You
you
go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay. I'm very interested because as you were scrolling in for Riwanua, you were talking about how Riwanua approaches research, and there's this word that you don't usually see in descriptions of research approach, which is clandestine expressions, I think it was, that you mentioned, that you're interested in themes that are underrepresented. So I'm wondering, when you think about sort of the established idea of research, how does this go against that or relates to that concept, and how did you arrive to it, and why is it important in the context of your work?
Yeah, actually, in terms of art, in terms of contemporary art practices, I found this with ruangrupa. Ruangrupa was started in 2000, and then soon after that, ruangrupa used one of the how to say one of the things that ruangrupa always do is always based on research-based art practices. So and then I joined ruangrupa in 2005, and then the friends in ruangrupa asked me, what do you want to do? Then I said, I want to do a research on what ruangrupa already started from the research. I want to research what ruangrupa already started from 2000, and also want to do a research that maybe can contribute to what ruangrupa want to do in the future. So that's how it was started. And then yeah, I mean, there are people around who are really conservative in defining what research is. That you are only a researcher if you are based in an established institutions. But then we reclaim that word, and then activities ruangrupa started to use it when ruangrupa started to use it when we prepare our projects, and when we prepare our projects, it's or we prepare an event, and it's always research based activities. Yeah, and then it started to be followed by including the Riwanwa, the initiative that I co-founded in Makassar. That we also use this notion of research, because everything we do is always based on the research. And then if I'm asked, sometimes I'm asked by the people that what kind of research you do. Is it quantitative, qualitative method? What kind of method? And then I said, sometimes we call it experimental method. Experimental means that any experimental can be successful, can be failed. So I just want to do research and then experimental. So, so yeah, that's how it is. We define research in a very wide understanding, yeah, in a very wide definitions, or very flexible definition that anyone can just define. Depends on the situation, depends on the need, depends on the context, and then depends on the purpose. Yeah.
Mei Cheng, or I can keep on going.
Sure. So just a quick question. So both are both like a non-profit, registered a non-profit organization, or like Luwana, Luanoa and ruangrupa are both like a non-profit organization, or no? I'm just
Oh
curious.
yeah. We are a non-profit organization, and then we are registered as a foundation.
Oh, as a
We are
foundation.
registered as a foundation, and then we are non-profit organizations. But also, but yeah, I mean, if you want to categorize it, because sometimes all those administrative stuff is only for the paper purpose. But in the practice, sometimes this paper or document stuff doesn't work. I mean, everyone can just jump in to do, or can just propose thing and then they just do it. So, but yeah, but since we want to, the reason why we register it, both ruangrupa and riwanwa, because we want to have access to resources, both in Indonesia, and then resources who are based in the international level. Yeah. So yeah, that's true. It's registered as a foundation legally. Yeah.
Like, can you
Even though
us?
at the, even though at the same times there are many initiatives in Indonesia are not registered. They just run their projects and then they are not registered, which is fine.
Okay.
And then they have their own strategy to access. They have their own strategy, and then they have their own way to access resources, which is up until now. It works. Some initiative who are not registered still are still around, and then they have their own way to define themselves and to run the projects. Yeah.
But when you register then do you have like an advantage in terms of applying for resources within Indonesia? Do you have that advantage?
Yeah, of course. There is an advantage to be registered, to access the resources in Indonesia, especially like last 5 years, the government through Minister of Education and Culture, they have a platform of support for art and cultural practices, and then one of the requirement is that we need to be registered. But they even make it more flexible now, that even though any initiative which are not registered, they can just apply. Also, individual can apply for those resources. Yeah. Yeah. It's in Indonesian context. Yeah.
And you said that part of the Luan was in plan is to publish, right? And I believe ruangrupa has published
Many things. Yeah,
yeah.
ruangrupa already published many things. Yeah.
Are those publications, do you have to go through like certain kind of censorship with the government? I'm curious.
So far, not really, because also the things that we publish is actually the things that we consider based on our needs and based on the research we did that our people need to know in art and cultural practices. But there are some. I remember a couple of years ago we published a magazine. And then there was a picture. There was a picture that not sensitive, but nothing. But there was a question on the picture, and then we explain. So this is the thing that in Indonesian context, that it's a matter of communication. It's a matter of communication that that's the reason why the notion of hanging out is very important here. That we can hang out, and that's how we find solutions with anybody. With the I mean, if you ever visited Indonesia before, or you will visit Indonesia in the future, that you will see people are hanging out hours and hours, where they discuss everything, including to solve or find the solution of any matters. So everything is discussable. Everything is discussable, and as long as it's communicated, as long as it's as long as it's as long as we have time to talk about it. That's why resources here doesn't mean it's always money. Money can fix everything, but sometimes also money cannot fix everything. It can, but the most important resources we have is time and energy, because of and then in our context, the term time is money doesn't really work, because we spend a lot of time not for money. We spend a lot of times, hours and hours, just to listen to each other, and also to talk to people. So yeah, the reason why we really love to talk, because also at the same times, the people are like to listen to us to talk. So it works both ways. People like to talk, and then people like to listen. So yeah, it works both ways. And hanging out is actually part of the research. When you hang out, and then that's how, like in ruang rupa context, it's really hard to define meeting, because of sometimes we schedule to have a meeting, and then the meeting, by the end of the day, it's not a meeting, it's hanging out for hours. And then, but through this hanging out, and then that's how we find the things that we want to do. That's how we find the 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 solutions if there are problems. That's also what Lumbung is. That Lumbung is that platform to solve any problems if there are, and then if there are problems, let's enjoy the moment. Don't bring any.
This concept and the practice of hanging out, is it like based on traditional social or cultural practice, economic practice, agricultural
Yeah.
practice?
Yeah, that's it. It's a flesh and bones. I mean, it's a flesh and bones in our culture. It's flesh and bones in our culture that people. Sorry. The yeah, it's a flesh and bones that we like to hang out. That the social gathering, is really important here. That people are really like to sit to talk, spending hours and hours, sometimes up until morning. Especially now during Ramadan, like during Ramadan, it's the most beautiful part of the most beautiful part of Ramadan Kareem is that the social gathering, like people sharing food, people sharing space for people who want who want to do breakfasting. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, if your question is it based on rooted in a social and cultural life? Yeah, it's flesh and bones. Flesh and bones and blood.
I wanted to follow up on what you were saying about these principles or values that you're telling us about. How do they? So I'll rephrase my question. We talk about this concept of artistic activism, right? The Center for Artistic Activism, who is one of the members of the research research collaboratory, talks about artistic activism in a particular way and has different ways of understanding it. How do you relate to that concept, or more specifically, how do you talk about your practice in that sense when it comes, if I say activism, what is that, how do you relate to that idea, if at all, when we describe creative activism or activism in general? Just simply because we're interested on how do you refer to your practice, essentially.
When the word activism appear in Indonesian context, so it has a long history, and then it's not going to be enough for a couple of minutes to talk about it. It takes I mean many, yeah, it can be a PhD thesis when we want to talk about activism in Indonesia, but I want to say like something that really common in Indonesia when it comes to activism. It's the activism is strongly rooted in the activism against colonialism in the past time. There was yeah, the colonialism the colonialism that took place in Indonesia. The colonial were the Dutch and also the Japanese, and then it was really started it was started from the word activism itself was defined by the people who went to study, or we can say that the middle class. But then there was a time Indonesia was we gained our independence in 1945, August 17th, and then the independence were proclaimed by the people who were considered as the founding father, who were activists before became the founding fathers. But and then there was a time we were ruled by the authoritarian regime for around 32 years, where activism also was a very strong notion. And then the authoritarian regime collapsed in 1998, and then there was a new atmosphere of activism up until now. The activism after 1998 was the activism based on what is it called? Based on to do things that were not allowed during the 32 years of authoritarian regime. So there was activism during the 32 years of authoritarian regime, and then there is an activism after the 32 years regime. And ruangrupa, that was started in 2000, 2 years after the collapse of the authoritarian regime, was actually part of this cultural activism after the authoritarian regime, where the openness was one of the keyword on the air, that people celebrate the openness, and then anyone can just start anything up until now. You can just a foundation, you can just start an initiative, which were not allowed during the 32 years authoritarian regime. Like during those 32 years regime, there were people who were sent to prison because they read books that were banned by the government. It was in 80s. it was in 80s that there were 3 students in the university. They were sent to prison because of they started a reading club, and then they discussed the books that were banned, the books that were previously banned by the government. But after 1998, I mean, you can find all those books that were banned anywhere. Like you can just you go to the bookstores, and then you can find the books. You can just and then there are PDFs around. So when you ask how to relate our activities with the world of activism, and then we can call it like a cultural activism. We can call it as a everyday politics activism. And then when we want to place ourselves in the political system, and then we consider I studied political science before, and then the reason why I studied political science because I wanted to know where are we in those political system, where are we, ruangrupa or the other cultural practitioners or cultural worker. So yeah, and then I found out that our position in the political system, that we are a pressure group or we are interest group, that we are a pressure group, we are interest group when we have interest in terms of cultural practices that we want to we want to deliver it to the policymaker, for example, or we want to apply an idea that we consider useful to be practiced by the people, at least the people around us, especially the people, the young people who have been working with us. Yeah, that's why the term, the keyword of regenerative is part of Lumbung that I mentioned before. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do one and then I'll pass it on to Mei Ching. About Lumbung, and you were saying how you brought that concept and now you call Documenta Lumbung One. What did that concept, which is, as you've described, based on emerging from this research, as you've described it, from cultural activism, from autonomy, self-governance, independency. I appreciate the word humor in there, which I would love to know more about what the role that humor plays. How, and I'll start with that one, but then also when you bring that to a concept like Documenta, why was that important? Was that something that you also envisioned as a kind of activism, or was it what kind of what process led you there?
Yeah. When thank you for the question, because of it will also touch upon how and then why, and then why and how we did Documenta 15 or Lumbung 1. The reason why, the basic reason why we did Documenta 15 or Lumbung 1, because we said yes. We could have said no, but then we said yes. Yeah, yeah, we said yes. They invited us to do it as the artistic director, and then we said yes. But before we said yes, we invited them back and asking them that, are you interested to work on a practice called Lumbung? Lumbung is, and then that's how we explain what Lumbung is. And then they said, okay, let's do it. And then, okay, let's also do it. Because you said yes, and then we said yes. We could have said no, but then okay, we said yes. And let's see. And then it worked with some, I don't want to call it problems, so let's call it dynamics. There are dynamics happening during the process, and also those dynamics are still happening up until now. Yeah, if we want, if we don't want to call it as problems, let's call it dynamics. But if you want to call it also problems, it's fine. So yeah, the if the question is that, do we consider it, or do we consider it also as part of this activism? I think yes. It's part of. If activism means that we apply the things that we believe, we if activism means that we practice the things that we've been holding on as a principles, as a values, then yeah, it was activism, because we applied, we propose what we believe, we propose what the values that we've been practiced, So Lumbung, the Lumbung itself, what we brought to Documenta 15 or Lumbung 1 was the practice that we've been practicing in ruangrupa. That's the reason why we can sustain up until 25 years, and then hopefully that we can sustain many years to come. It's because of, especially with humor. When you ask about humor, because of, for us, humor is very important. That's the reason why it takes hours and hours when you hang out, because that's how you apply humors from any humors based on the books we read or the jokes we heard before or the films we just watched, or any humors that relate to, for example, in Indonesia there are a lot of humors about the Dutch, because the Dutch colonized Indonesia, and then we have a lot of humors about the Dutch, or many things, like and then yeah, that's how that's how we did it. That we brought this, and then we started to do on Documenta 15 or Lumbung 1 when they announced that we are the artistic director of this event. And then we started it from we started it, we didn't really started it from the scratch, because we brought the thing that we practice. But in terms of localities, in terms of geographical wise, so we came to Kassel for the first time because of 10 of us in ruangrupa, only one of us ever been in Documenta before. So Documenta 15 or Lumbung 1 was our first Documenta. So we've never been there before. We've never been there before. But then they selected us, and then it became our first Documenta. So when we visited Kassel for the first time, what we did was not thinking about which artists we will work with, which venues we will use for the exhibitions, and but what we did for the first time was hanging out with the people around, hanging out with the street merchandise vendors, with the bartenders, with the street magazine sellers, or with the homeless people, because we want to know what are really on the ground, not in the office, but we wanted to know literally what are really on the grounds. So yeah, that's what we did it. And also in regarding the time zones, because we're really struggling about the time zones. Also during the preparation of Documenta 15 or Lumbung 1, that's the reason why when we announced the name of the invited or the lineup of the participants, it was announced not based on the home country where they come from, but it was based on the time zone where they come from. So so I'll send you a link that you cannot recognize that because we announce it with the name of the names of the artists, not based on the home country where they come from, but based on the time zone, because we're really struggling, especially to get into the Zoom. Like there was a time because we invited a friend who's based in Trinidad Tobago, and then there was a time like 5 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and then to meet our friends from Trinidad Tobago because of the time difference. So yeah, so there was no home country mentioned there, but it's the time zone. The reason why, because of we are struggling with the time zone when we wanted to meet via Zoom, and then also because most of the research we did via Zoom. In the first place, before the pandemic, we travel, but then pandemic came and then we started it via Zoom. So yeah, and then the second reason why we did it, why we mentioned the time zones or this the artists and the people we invited, it was because of many of our friends who are who are part of this lineup invited participants are on the road. So the time zones doesn't really, the home country doesn't really apply to them. Maybe they hold one specific passport, but it's not really affected when they travel because they are on the road. Today they are in Europe, and then tomorrow they can be in Asia, and then the day after tomorrow they can be in Africa, and then so when we want to meet via Zoom, we didn't ask him that we didn't ask them about the country mentioned in their passport, but we asked them what time is it there now. So it's not the name of the country mentioned in their passport we asked about, but what time is it now? What time is it there? Yeah. So yeah, that's some reasons about the times of the reason why we announce the name of the invited participant based on their time zones. Yeah. Okay, I hope answer. Sorry if it's too long and it's boring.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm thinking while you speak about so many things. Mei-Ching, do you have any follow-up questions?
Oh yeah, definitely a following up question is, so how did you your collective as a group decide on who to invite to participate in the Documenta?
Documenta or Lumbung one, yeah?
Yeah.
So yeah, we started it from the friendships we already made before. I mean, ruangrupa started in 2000, as I mentioned, and then we have some friends in some places in the world, and then we really started it from there. We asked them to meet via Zoom, and then or we visit them, and then ask them that we do this Documenta Biennial, and then we want to invite you to be part of it. But then some people, and then we don't want to be very extractive that you have to, this invitation is important, and then that's why you have to join it. But it's not the way we do it. It's not the way we did it. But we just ask them if you are only available. If you're not available, and then it's fine. Some people are not available. Some people were not available, and then they said some people were not available, and they said, okay, I'm not available to be part of this, but maybe I can recommend some friends. And then that's also how we made new friendship. Because for us in ruangrupa, the most important thing is make friends, not the most important thing is make friends, letter art. So that's how also we made new friendships. And then if the question is that how we decided, it's always based on the collective decision and it's always based on the collective decision, and then it's not via voting. It's not via voting because we're not we're not in the parliamentary building where we need to vote to decide something. So, but so yeah, we just thinking and then discuss about it. Sometimes it takes hours and hours, and then sometimes it takes some days to decide that okay, let's go. So it's not always about it's not about because for us collective decision making is not about based on the individual or personal decision, but it's a collective decision. Yeah. But also,
Well,
of course, we always ask second opinions, second or third or fourth or fifth opinions to people they might know about the people or the initiative that we want to work with. Yeah.
Can I ask?
Yeah, please go ahead. I'm just cognizant of the time right now. We have like around 4 to 5 minutes. I would keep on going, but we're trying to keep them to 1 hour.
Sure.
Maybe we can do a couple more, Mei-Ching and me, and then we start closing if that's okay with everybody. Yeah, go ahead, Mei-Ching.
Also, yeah. So yeah, I would like to come back to like Indonesia, right? So what are the like major social or pressing social issues of Indonesia, or the cities that you are based, that you consider as your group collective consider, and what's like your position in relation to the like pressing social issues?
Sorry.
I wonder whether those I would assume like every country, every city has its own pressing social issues or problems, and what does your collective position yourself in relationship to those social problems? or issues?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. If there are social problems, there must be social solutions, right? So we are more focused on the social solutions. So 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 the solutions that we can take together, the solution that we can bring together as a collective. I mean, if we keep on talking about problems, it's never ending. So okay, problems are there, but why don't we think about the social solutions? So and then the solutions is always taken the solution is always taken by approaching it with experimental ways of solution making and then we always try to we always try our best not really stick to the problems, but try to find a way out, try to find ways out of that's why Lumbung is about, if there are problems, if we call it problems, and then let's find a social solution. But if there are no problems, please don't bring any. So let's just enjoy the moment. So there are many times that we just enjoy the moment because we thought, oh, there are, yeah, yeah, this is it. I mean, let's just enjoy it. Uh, let's just enjoy the moment. As a collective, but in ruangrupa itself, there is always this, there is always a collective interest, but also at the same time there is always an individual interest or personal interest. How does it work in both ways, the collective interest and the personal interest? It always works, and how to do it, and then it's sometimes it's unexplainable. I mean, you really need to feel it. You really need to be part of it to really apply this personal interest and then collective interest. Like the reason why I mentioned before that I'm part of ruangrupa, but I still can start something else somewhere else, and then we're still supporting each other. Ruangrupa support the new initiative I started, and then Riwanwa, the new initiative I started in Makassar, also supporting ruangrupa at the same times. So yeah, we always stick to the social solutions, not the problems.
That's great. I have a last question, I think, as we close up. I'm really curious. We're talking about the individual level, the collective level, in terms of decision making and in terms of imagining things that you want to find out, the research as well. What is happening now, today? What are the interests for you personally and for the collective that you're noticing in terms of research experiences or research directions? What do you think is coming up, or what is coming up right now? Because it seems like you're building from all these things you've learned, even from Lumbung 1, right? And it keeps on going. What is happening now? What are you looking ahead towards?
Practically, we're really now preparing the 25th years of ruangrupa, which will be next year, April 1st. It's not going to be April Mop.
Mm.
And then we're preparing Lumbung 2. Yeah, we're preparing Lumbung 2 somewhere else, not in Germany. Because as we mentioned before, that Lumbung continued somewhere else. So yeah, that's we really. I mean, practically, that's what we really. That's what we really do, both as a collective and then both as a personal interest. And then yeah, like for this anniversary of ruangrupa, we already started to do research in an island, one big major island also in Indonesia, that we're going to do something there. The research started last month, and then it will be keep on going up until the end of the year. And then by the early days of the next year, the project will be started. Yeah, and then of course at the same time we still keep on going on. We still keep on discussing the preparation of the Lumbung 2 with our friends who are part of Lumbung 1. Yeah. The friends here means that the people who think that Lumbung is a is a practice and concept that need to be continued. Because it's needed. And then also we don't really see that Lumbung is a single practice and solutions for all the things that we need to take care of. But we also consider that there are many practices and concepts like this in many corners of the world. And then why don't we bring it together? Yeah, maybe
Can
for
I
the
just
Lumbung.
follow up? You just said because it is needed. Why do you think Lumbung is needed today?
It's needed because of we've been living in a very, very extractive, practices, both in art practices, and then we apply this non-extractivism art practices, and then we want to continue it. We want to continue it as an experimentation in doing cultural activities, art and cultural activities, because we believe it that we can sustain because of we believe that we want to experiment that we can sustain with this way of working, of sharing resources, working together, and then apply all the values. There were 7 values before, and then we think that we want to expand some new values that we learn from the process of this Documenta 15 or Lumbung 1 for the next Lumbung 2.
That's great.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. Mei-Ching, anything else that you might want to ask?
No, I have, but I think time's up. So
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Do
yeah.
you have? Can we do one more, Andan? Is that okay? Last one.
It's fine.
Yeah,
Last
then
but not least,
definitely, the question I'm so curious is about what are the major challenges that you guys are working together? Any challenges that prevent you guys from talking, sharing, like frankly, honestly? Is there any challenges at all?
the biggest challenge we always have is that now, because time is the most important resources for us, and then yeah, the biggest challenge we always face up until now is the time. Yeah, because of is the time, and then because it's a challenge, and then we always find the time to do it. Yeah. The biggest challenge is time and space. Time and space. Because those are the biggest challenge, this time and space, and also up until now, we always find solutions to overcome this challenge. Yeah, that's the reason why we're still we can sustain up until now, and then hopefully we can sustain many years to come because of this challenge. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
Well,
but
thank
all
you
this-
so much.
Yeah,
No,
totally.
go ahead. Sorry.
I was saying all this is so uplifting and inspiring. Yeah, the spirit I admire so much.
Yeah, same
Yeah,
here. I think yeah.
Yeah, it's because we don't use any noun or adjective after time and space. Like we know that there is this term time is money, and then we don't use it. Only time. Only time. Only time. No is money. So we don't try to put any noun or any adjective there after time. So that's it.